All right, welcome back, everyone. It's time for another deep dive. And today, we are going to be laser focused on our UPSC aspirants.
Absolutely.
This deep dive is going to be particularly relevant if you are studying for the India and the World section of an exam.
Right.
And this is relevant for both the mains and the prelims exams.
Oh, for sure.
We're diving into some really fascinating insights that we found today in the Hindu newspaper.
Yeah.
And it's all about India's increasingly prominent role on the world stage,
Right.
specifically how India is focusing on the global south.
Oh, that's interesting. So if you are prepping for how India interacts with the world, I think what we are seeing is a real shift in gears.
Yeah.
India isn't just trying to keep up with China anymore. It
Yeah.
seems that there's a bigger ambition in play here.
Yeah.
India wants to be a leader, become a real leader for a lot of these developing nations.
Yeah.
Countries that are seeking alternatives to the more established powers, I guess.
I'm seeing a lot of headlines about Prime Minister Modi's speeches at a couple of recent events.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas,
Right?
and the second one was the Voice of Global South Summit.
Yeah, I saw those.
These are some big important names, everyone.
Yeah.
UPSC aspirants, make sure you remember these.
Make a note of these.
He is making some pretty bold statements about India's role on the global stage.
Yeah, so, I think these speeches really do highlight a significant departure
Okay.
from India's sort of traditional stance, the old non-alignment.
Non-alignment.
Yeah, the non-alignment movement. For those of you who might not be familiar, this was a group of countries that chose not to side with either the U.S. or the Soviet Union
Right.
during the Cold War.
Right.
But today, things are a bit different.
Yeah.
It's not so much about being anti-West anymore.
Right.
It's really more about trying to build bridges
Yeah.
and forge this kind of new global partnership.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where India is kind of positioning itself as a bridge
Okay.
between developed and developing countries.
Now, this is where I think things get really interesting
Hmm.
because we can't ignore the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah.
The fact that China has a massive footprint,
Huge.
a huge presence in Africa and Asia,
Yeah.
particularly with this Belt and Road Initiative,
Yeah.
which is aiming to build up all of this infrastructure and boost trade across multiple continents.
Mm-hmm.
So how can India even offer a compelling alternative here?
It's a great question.
Can it really compete with China when it comes to economic power?
Well, and it's a question you all might be asking yourselves as you're studying.
Yeah.
But India's approach here is it's actually very different.
Okay.
So instead of, focusing just on these massive infrastructure projects,
Right.
India is emphasizing these partnerships
Okay.
built on equality and sustainable development. So it's about finding creating win-win situations
Yeah.
that, benefit everybody involved.
Yeah.
Rather than what critics of China's approach called debt trap diplomacy.
Ah, yes. Debt trap diplomacy.
Right.
For those of you who aren't familiar with this, it's this idea where a country loans money
Mm-hmm.
for a bunch of projects
Right.
with the intention of then extracting economic or political concessions
Oh, I see.
if that borrower can't repay the debt.
Yeah.
So India is essentially saying, hey, we're offering a different model,
Right.
one that will appeal to countries that are kind of wary about becoming too reliant on China.
Exactly. And there's another layer to all of this as well,
Okay.
which is the West.
Interesting.
So countries like the US, Australia, Japan,
Yeah.
they're pretty happy, they're quite pleased
Okay.
to see India kind of stepping up as a counterbalance
Interesting.
to China's growing influence.
I see.
And we see this, for example, in the Quad Alliance.
The Quad, yeah.
This strategic partnership between these four democracies,
Right.
which really strengthens India's position globally on the global stage.
Okay.
And kind of adds this whole new dimension to this whole geopolitical chessboard.
Our UPSC gurus. Let's connect this back to India's own ambitions.
Yeah.
Because it's clearly not just about reacting to China, right?
Right.
There's this feeling that India wants to be a leader, wants to lead in shaping a fairer global economic order,
Oh, absolutely.
wants to have a say in how the rules of the game are made.
Absolutely. And, India, along with many other developing nations, has often felt, a little marginalized
Yeah.
by the existing global economic structures.
Right.
They feel burdened by debt,
Yeah.
subjected to, these stringent conditions from international institutions.
Right. Right.
And, because India has experienced these challenges firsthand. It's actually uniquely positioned to champion the needs and the aspirations of the global South.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So it's not just geopolitical maneuvering.
Yeah.
It's a shared experience that gives India credibility.
Yeah.
Like it gets the struggles of the global South in a way that I don't think China or the West can fully grasp.
Exactly. And this is really crucial for you to understand us as UPSC aspirants.
Yeah.
Because it positions India as a leader that speaks from a place of understanding and empathy, not just from a position of power or, economic might.
Yeah, and this kind of brings us to, I think, a key challenge for India.
Yeah.
Which is translating these grand visions into concrete actions. How does India actually make this happen?
Yeah. Right.
Nice speeches are one thing, but what needs to happen on the ground to actually make a difference here?
Yeah, well, let's break it down a bit.
Okay.
So India has laid out its Global Development Compact, which on paper, aims to foster development partnerships.
Right.
But it needs to avoid, being too India-centric.
Okay.
Instead of kind of dictating terms,
Yeah.
it should focus on genuine collaboration
Yeah.
and knowledge sharing, a true two-way street,
Right. Yeah.
where everyone benefits.
So more about sharing best practices, less about just imposing solutions.
Exactly.
Okay. Now I'm also seeing a lot of talk about India's human-centric development model,
Right.
particularly with these initiatives like Mission Life, which focuses on sustainable living.
Right.
But what does this actually look like in practice beyond the environmental concerns?
Yeah.
How does this translate into tangible improvements in people's lives?
Yeah, well, this is where India can really shine, I think. So
Okay.
think about things like skill development, entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
and empowering women.
Right.
These are areas where India has made significant progress domestically, through programs like Skill India,
India.
which aims to, equip millions of Indians with job-ready skills.
Right.
And these are precisely the areas that a lot of developing countries are looking to prioritize.
So taking the success of Skill India and applying it globally.
Exactly.
It's about sharing that expertise.
Exactly.
And building capacity from the ground up.
Yeah.
Empowering people to create their own success stories.
Exactly. And don't forget about India's thriving micro, small, and medium enterprise sector. The MSME sector.
The MSME.
MSMEs play such a vital role
Huge.
in developing economies.
Yeah.
And India's experience in nurturing this sector, it can be invaluable.
Yeah.
For other countries.
It's not just about big corporations. It's about supporting these small businesses.
Exactly, as entrepreneurs. Yeah. Which really are the backbone of so many emerging markets.
Exactly. The backbone.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, India is also pushing for the African Union to have a seat at the G20 table.
Yeah.
Which I think demonstrates a real commitment
Yeah.
to giving the global South a stronger voice in these global decision-making processes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A very, very important move.
Yeah.
And one that you should definitely note
Right.
for your UPSC preparations.
Yeah.
But at the same time, India also needs to strengthen its own institutional mechanisms
Okay.
for global cooperation.
Okay.
Relying solely on the UN or other multilateral organizations, it's not a sustainable long-term solution.
Okay.
It needs to invest in building its own capacity
Right.
to really lead on the world stage.
So it's about becoming a more effective and influential player in the international arena.
Are there any specific examples of how India can build this institutional muscle?
Well, one effective strategy is to engage in trilateral partnerships,
Right.
where India collaborates with more experienced nations,
Right.
like Germany or France,
Right.
on development projects in third countries.
Oh, I see.
So this allows India to learn best practices, build expertise,
Yeah.
gain gain valuable experience
Yeah.
in managing these complex global initiatives.
Okay.
It's about learning from the pros
Right.
while also, contributing its own unique strengths.
It seems like India is walking a bit of a tightrope here.
Absolutely.
On one hand, it wants to be the voice of the global south, championing the needs and aspirations of developing nations.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it needs to balance those aspirations with its own national interests
Right.
and avoid falling into the same traps as the traditional powers that it seeks to challenge.
Absolutely. It's a very, very delicate balancing act.
Yeah.
And India's policies, need to genuinely align with the needs of the global south.
Right.
Not just serve as a cover for pursuing its own narrow interests.
Yeah.
Otherwise, its credibility as a leader will quickly erode.
This raises some really crucial questions, I think, for our UPSC audience.
Yeah.
How can India actually navigate these complexities?
Hmm.
How can it ensure that its engagement with the global south is genuinely equitable and beneficial for all parties involved?
Yeah.
How can it avoid simply replicating the mistakes of the past?
These are the questions that will really define India's success or failure on the global stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just about providing aid or signing agreements.
Yeah.
It's about building genuine partnerships based on mutual respect, shared values, and a genuine commitment to sustainable and inclusive development.
So more than just a competition for influence, this is about like forging a new model for international relations.
Exactly.
One that's more equitable, more collaborative, and more responsive to the needs of developing nations.
Precisely. And this is where the human element really, really comes into play.
Okay.
India has this rich history of people-to-people connections
Yes.
with the global south.
Right.
Through its diaspora, its cultural exchanges, and its historical ties.
Yeah.
And these connections can be incredibly powerful, especially in a world that's often divided by, politics, economics, and ideology.
Right.
India is offering this more inclusive, more human-centered vision
Yeah.
of global cooperation,
Yeah.
one that's rooted in shared values and aspirations.
This all sounds incredibly promising.
Yeah.
Are there any potential downsides or risks to India's approach here?
Well, of course. I mean, no strategy is without its risks.
Yeah.
One concern is that India's focus on the global south could come at the expense of its relationships with developed countries, particularly Western nations.
Yeah. Yeah.
India needs to maintain strong ties with both, the developed and the developing world,
Yeah.
striking this delicate balance
Right.
between pursuing its interests in the global south and nurturing its existing partnerships.
It's a balancing act, but it seems like it's one that India is determined to navigate.
Absolutely.
And for you, our UPSC listeners,
Yeah.
this is a dynamic and evolving situation.
Yeah.
Full of potential pitfalls and opportunities. It really is a complex landscape. And understanding all these nuances
Yeah.
is crucial for our UPSC aspirants.
Yeah.
This isn't just about memorizing a bunch of facts and figures for your exam,
Right.
but it's about really analyzing the trends,
Yeah.
understanding the complexities of global politics,
Yeah.
and forming your own informed opinions.
Absolutely. And think about the long-term implications of this whole global south push.
Right.
How will it shape the global balance of power?
Yeah.
What are the potential benefits and risks for India? How will this impact the lives of people in developing countries?
Yeah.
These are the big picture questions that can really, make your UPSC answers stand out.
These are the kinds of questions that really separate those who just regurgitate information
Yeah.
from those who demonstrate genuine understanding
Right.
and critical thinking.
Yeah.
And for our listeners who are preparing for the ethics paper,
Mm-hmm.
don't forget about the ethical dimensions of India's global role.
Right.
India emphasizes this human-centric development.
Mm.
But what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean in practice?
Right. That's a really good question for you all to grapple with as you're preparing for this.
How can India ensure that its engagement with the global south is genuinely equitable?
Yeah.
and benefits all parties involved.
Right.
How can it avoid simply replicating the mistakes of traditional powers
Hmm.
and truly embody these principles of fairness, justice, and sustainability?
It's a big challenge, but it's one worth considering.
This is where I think the whole voice of the global South
Mhm.
concept gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Is India truly listening
Hmm.
to the needs and aspirations of these nations,
Right.
or is it simply projecting its own interests
Yeah.
and its own priorities?
That's the key question, right?
It's easy to talk about partnership and collaboration,
Hmm.
but I think the true test lies in the actions and ultimately the outcomes.
That's a crucial point. And it's something you should really critically evaluate as you're studying this topic for your UPSC exams.
Right.
Ultimately, the success of India's Global South strategy,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to hinge on its ability to build genuine partnerships
Right.
based on mutual respect, shared values, and a genuine commitment to the well-being of everyone involved.
All right, folks. Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive
Yeah.
into India's role in the global South.
Right.
We've explored the historical context,
Mm.
the motivations behind India's push, the strategies that it's employing, and the potential implications really for India and the world.
We've covered a lot of ground, but remember, this is just the beginning
Yeah.
of your exploration.
Yeah.
Your UPSC journey requires you to dig deeper, to critically examine the information that's been presented, and
Yeah.
to form your own well-informed opinions.
So keep researching, keep questioning, keep those brains buzzing. And don't forget to check out today's edition of The Hindu for more in-depth analysis on this and other crucial topics relevant to your UPSC preparations.
And if you found this deep dive helpful,
Yeah.
we encourage you to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more insightful discussions on all things UPSC.
Yes.
And don't hesitate to share your thoughts, your insights, any questions you might have in the comments section below. We
Yeah.
we always love to hear from our dedicated UPSC community.
Absolutely. We're all in this together. We believe in your success.
Mhm.
Keep learning, keep striving, and best of luck with your UPSC journey. Until next time.